we are in the middle of Simon Chafei Iggeres HaKodesh. Let's
Recap?
yeah. It's a nice word, recap. Where did you hear that before? Let's summarize what we learned up until this point. Recap. Okay, recap.
It's met Chazal.
So we explained that getting angry, as Chazal tell us, getting angry is ka'eved avodah zarah. That's what the Rambam says. Why is it ka'eved avodah zarah? Because when you get angry, what you're essentially losing your emunah in Hashem at that moment, that Hashem is in control of everything. That's no matter what happens, whether it's something that happened to you, so they say an act of God, is what they call it, right?
Act of God, yeah.
Someone has a hurricane destroying their house, or whether it's someone, an arsonist burns down their house, whether it's a person or it happens stam azay. There's nothing stam. The Eibishter is in control of everything, and everything is the Eibishter. We mentioned, however, there is one exception when anger is not only allowed, but when anger is a mitzvah. As we see in the Torah, it says Vayiksev Moshe. When Moshe gets angry, and what is the idea over there? To understand that, again, this is going to be a little of a theme in today's class. Whatever Hashem creates for a purpose. We can abuse it, or we can utilize it according for its purpose. If it couldn't serve a positive purpose, it would. If it couldn't serve a positive purpose, Hashem wouldn't have created it. And the same thing is when it comes to anger. So even though anger seems to be a very negative thing, but apparently there also it has a positive. And what is that? Is that when you see someone doing an avera, so then we should get angry. So first of all, philosophically speaking, you have every right to get angry. In other words, the reason why we don't get angry when things happen is because Hashem is in control of everything. But HaKodesh Shemayim. So when someone else chooses to do an avera, that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing. That's something we talked about many times in our class. The only one who can do something bad is a human being. Everything else is the Eibishter. Whatever the Eibishter does is good. So getting angry is not the avodah zarah. You're not saying Hashem lost control. Yeah, Hashem actually conceded control, kaviyachol, to human beings by giving them free choice. And what is the value in getting angry? Well, as we know, when we get angry, if anyone over here has ever gotten angry before?
No.
No? Reuben never gotten angry before? No?
Yeah. What's that?
What's that? Okay, so I guess that leaves us me and Abshulam over here. Okay?
Angry is natural.
Anger is so.
If someone hits you, you don't get angry. Are you going to have him give a good smile?
You want to know.
Someone injures you very severe. You're going to react to it.
Someone hits me, it's an asayin, but you want to know what the real answer is? The answer is.
I understand that. But you have to deal with that asayin at that point.
100%. And is it natural to get angry? Absolutely. But then the whole idea of Yiddishkeit, and especially Chassidus, is Me'er Shat Alev, to control yourself and realize, as David said about Shemiki Hashem, Amar Lei Kalel, that it's from Hashem. Now that person did a bad thing, that person is going to be punished. But I have to know that the patch was from Hashem. If I get angry, who am I getting angry at? I'm getting angry at Hashem.
You're getting angry on that guy.
For what? He didn't hurt me. Hashem hurt me. And if Hashem hurt me, must be good for me. He had
Bechir.
Reuben, we discussed this at length in previous classes. He had Bechir and he did something wrong. He'll be punished. But if it wasn't nigzar on me to get hit, I would not have been hit. Abishah wouldn't have allowed it. Yeah. So that's his cheshbon.
Yeah, and it has to be notified. The person has to be notified that this is not to be done.
Why?
Because it's not right.
Why? No, not why it's not right. Why do you have to notify him?
He's morid b'malchus.
So you're saying there's a mitzvah yechech to chech sam yisacha?
Yes.
Good. That doesn't mean getting angry. But there's another point. If you want to get angry at him,
getting angry is for other people to see that they shouldn't do the same thing.
If you want to get angry at him, because the Torah says to get angry at a person who doesn't have Veda, that's fine. But you have to realize then you have to be as angry as someone who hits someone else as someone who hits you also.
Yes.
There's no difference.
Yes.
Because and you have to realize the anger is not because I got hurt, because I was meant to get hurt. The anger is that he didn't have Veda.
Oh, you have to direct that event.
So it's a very specific anger. But even that anger, so, and what's the purpose of getting angry? At the end of the day, anger is a destructive midah, as we discussed last week. Baluch al kas, baluch al tos, right? Anger, and some other people mentioned some other Mamari Chazal, right? That someone was right. Someone was gets angry, so whatever he learns, he forgets, right? It's not a. But at the end of the day, again, me and Reb Shulam know this. The two of us over here in this room have gotten angry. But the other three of you denied ever getting angry. But me and Reb Shulam know this, that anger is a motivator. When you're angry, your engine is running and revving, and when you see someone doing an avera, there's a mitzvah to get angry. Why? Because that anger is going to motivate you to get you to stop that person from doing more averas. And that's legitimate. That's legitimate. So if someone does an avera, and your anger can stop that person from doing another avera, then that anger is condoned. But again, the anger has to be not because I was hurt, because you have to realize if you got hurt, that's min hashamayim. The anger is because he's doing something which the Eibishter Hashem told him not to do, and it's my anger is going to motivate me to do whatever I can to stop him from doing it.
I think that's what I was trying to say.
Okay.
They said if
But why should we agree if we could disagree?
That's true too.
Yeah.
they said if somebody can stop his anger, he can give a brachot and everything mitkayim.
Yeah.
I
Right?
think he's making
Yeah.
fun of me, you know.
No, never.
Are you getting angry at me now?
Who's getting angry?
Okay. However, all this, again, this is again, still summarizing what we spoke about last week. All this is when your anger has the ability to accomplish something productive, in which case it's a mitzvah to get angry. But what if your anger is not going to get you anywhere?
Say it again, anger?
Your anger is not going to get you anywhere.
Even brother, er staat toch het woord sisul of chet. You have to know how to.
Yeah, 100%. What you're saying is that even when you see someone doing an avera, you can't allow your anger
If the
to
person's
go and start
not
screaming at the
receptive-
person, right?
If the person is not receptive, then it's not a mitzvah. to do.
To the contrary, right? Then it's a waste of words and right. Now, but what if your anger is not going to help you at all? The example that the Rebbe is going to give over here. The example is that you're davening, and a goy, an anti-Semite, is speaking to you and trying to disturb you from davening. You can get angry from today to tomorrow. The guy's not stopping. So what now?
You should daven much more intensely. You said that.
Yeah, but I want to take you there.
What?
I want to take you there. I want to back up a little.
Go back up.
It's more shaykh that a yid is trying to disturb you. By davening loud.
I understand. The chayr the same would apply, but the reason why we're saying a goy, because if you remember, this whole perek is based on the Tzavos Arivash, where it talks about a goy. Maybe today it's more common. Back then, times of the Baal Shem Tov probably was much more common for a goy to disturb than for a yid. So a goy is disturbing your davening, and you're aware of the fact that this is going on. The Eibishter runs the world. Everything's from Hashem. Not only that, as we mentioned, at this moment, there's a nitzutz of the Shechina, which is talking in Golus in the Goy, because that's the idea of Golus HaShechina. The Shechina is in Golus in the Klippus, but ultimately, this is from the Eibishter, because Klippa doesn't exist on its own. The energy is from Hashem. So this is the Eibishter is causing this and deciding that you should be disturbed. Why does Hashem want a Goy disturbing your davening? What's the purpose in that?
Put you in the same. See if you answer him.
But this is a very important idea. When something happens, there's a reason for it. Why? Because if I realize Ein Oid Milvado, again, if I'm realizing that everything ultimately is being created by Hashem at every single moment, from a nitzutz from the Shechina, even Klippa, there's a nitzutz of Shechina, even on the Klippa, it's Taka and Golos, but there's a nitzutz, so then by definition, there's a purpose for everything. If a Yid is doing Avera, so the purpose is for me to get angry at him. Why am I aware of it? Because I need to get angry and stop him from doing Averas. But if I can't stop it, so why? It must be a reason. Why is it happening? And the answer is, because right now I'm being disturbed by the davening. I need to get to a place where I won't be disturbed by davening. It's possible for a person to have kavanah in davening to the extent that they're, so to say, in a bubble, and so to say, removed from their environment. It's not easy. It takes a tremendous kavana. But I think it's probably not a ridiculous statement to say that some of you here know what I'm talking about. That you davening and you enter a certain zone, and in that zone, you're unaware of what's going on around you. What does that mean? Does that mean that if an ear raid siren went off, you wouldn't hear it? No, you would hear it. I don't mean to that extreme, but the people are talking. You're focused. It takes a tremendous amount of kavana, but we can get to that place. You mentioned that there was a Fabregen over here from.
What?
You mentioned that the Fabregen here on Tuesday night with Rabbi Merazov. So, as I've mentioned many times, that I used to Fabregen a lot with Rabbi Merazov's grandfather, Rabbi Mendel Merazov, and he said that his father was a very famous chassid, whose name was Reb Chanya. He was known as Chanya. His name was Elchanan Doiv. Elchanan Doiv, known as Chanya. Yeah. So that he was the gabbai, the attendant of the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe, and then afterwards of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Then the Frierdiker Rebbe got arrested and was expelled from the Soviet Union. So this is in 1927. At the same time as the Frierdiker Rebbe was arrested, so he was also arrested. He was sent off for 3 years into Galus. Sometimes they would do that. That was the punishment. They'd send you off to... The Rebbe's father was sent off for 5 years. They sent him off to somewhere in far off Asia. Russia is huge. Russia is crazy huge.
Siberia, no?
Not Siberia. It was actually a very hot place. It was a very with mud and
Southern
bugs.
Republic.
What?
Tashkent.
I think it's called Chile. Is there a province in Russia called Chile? Look upon him, far off. You look how big Russia is. So everything is on the west side. All the big cities. And then you have Russia goes all the way down to China, to Japan. It's like so someone they'd send him away from his family, send him away for a few years. That's a big punishment. Off to some village. Imagine someone lives in Moscow with his family. So they sent him off for 3 years. There's a lot of stories connected to that. But the bottom line is, he comes back 3 years later. The Rebbe is out of Russia. So what's he going to do? So for the next few years, eventually he was again. So this is 1938. He was arrested and he was killed. This Chanya Merazov. In other words, but there was a few years.
Was killed.
He was killed. Yeah. Many Chassidim were killed.
In KGB.
Especially in that year, Tafrei Tzadik Ches, 1938, which the year Tafrei Tzadik Ches, even it spells Tirtzach, which is a murderous year. It was a terrible year for Chabad Chassidim in Russia. Many Chassidim were taken and killed. So he came back, and what did he do? He wasn't really equipped to be a I don't know, an accountant or a doctor. He was a huge mind in Chassidus. So he sat at home, and he was in somewhat, they were looking for him again, so he didn't have much of a public profile. But he said that anyone who would come in to learn Chassidus, he would sit down and learn Chassidus. Anyone, even the simplest people. Remendel Merazov, if I could take a little break, for stories always take a break, right? Remendel Merazov says he remembers a certain chassid. He said his name, I don't remember what his name was. So he wasn't a Lubavitcher, he wasn't a born Lubavitcher. And he lived in the Soviet Union. He was a young man, a frum person, and it was very, very, very difficult to stay frum. I imagine the Soviet Union, we're talking about the 20s. And he heard about the Baal Shem Tov. So he went to Mezhebush, and he went to the cave of the Baal Shem Tov. If I recall correctly, he says he cried for many hours at the cave of the Baal Shem Tov and said, I need you to tell me where the Tzaddik Hader is. So I need to go, I need the Tzaddik Hader for the strength. Anyways, he went home, he went to sleep. The Baal Shem Tov came to him in a dream and told him, if you want the Tzaddik Hader, go to Leningrad. So he went to Leningrad.
That's St. Petersburg, right?
Yeah. So he went to Leningrad. It was changed. The name was changed after the revolution. Yeah. Went to Leningrad, and he went into a bunch of shuls. Where's the Tzaddik Hader? Where's the Tzaddik Hader? People thought he was a little crazy. Mm-hmm. Until finally someone said, we don't know who the Tzaddik Hader is, but you know what? The Lubavitcher Rebbe, he lives here in this city. Why didn't you go ask him?
That's a good answer.
So he went to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he says, I need to know who the Tzaddik Hader is. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says, you know what? Why didn't you go Neville? You'll probably find out. Neville was a Lubavitcher village. Mm-hmm. So he went off to Neville, and he found out who the Tzaddik Hader was. And they became a Lubavitcher. He married married, whatever, married Baal Sheva. His, I don't know if his wife was a cook for many years in Alvatera. Afterwards, his wife came to America. Back upon him. Very, very, very simple mind, this person. And he gave him his example. When he would come to the door, Reb Chanya would sit and learn with him for Chassidus for an hour. Even though that Reb Chanya was this biggest genius in Chassidus possible, but he... And sometimes people were coming a whole day, and he would sit a whole day and learn with people Chassidus. And then shortly before Shkia, he would put on his talis and tefillin and daven quickly.
Chakras.
Shachris. By Chassidim in general, Chabad in particular, you know, not. He says, if, however, it came 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there was no one around, so then he would start davening, because there was no one around to learn Chassidus with. And he would daven for hours. Daven for hours. He said that his eyes would be wide open as he davened, and he had no idea what was going on around him. So people then would come, they'd learn Chassidus, but he was in a different zone, a different world altogether. He wasn't there. And he would daven for hours and hours. In other words, which is very interesting, that as much as he was a person who loved davening and appreciated and enjoyed davening, he would daven for hours, but if someone needed to learn Chassidus, that was his more important thing, was to learn Chassidus with another Yid, to be kind of another Yid than his own Avodas Hashem. But that's the Metzias. There are people who would daven to the point that they were oblivious. When I was a Bachar in Kfar Chabad, there was a person there, his last name was Lison. I think his first name was Avram, if I recall correctly. He was a Edom, a son-in-law by a very famous mashpia, whose name was Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman. Shlomo Chaim Kesselman was mashpia in Kfar Chabad until he passed away in 1971. So this was his son-in-law. And every Friday night, this Reb Avram Lison, he would sit in one of the shuls of them in Kfar Chabad, and he would daven for hours. I sometimes would go, after the meal would end, the Shabbos meal, after Kval Shabbos, the meal would go, would sit there, and he was still holding by Mizmer LaDavid, before the Chodedi. And he would daven, and every word, and he would sing the Gunim, and it was very clear that he passed away, by the way, only around 2-3 years ago.
What about Minyan, these people?
He was there by Minyan. And he answered Amen and Baruch Hu, and then he went and he davened for hours. Every Friday night. He had a padded chair, because he would sit for hours, he would sit, and the people were walking on the shul, whatever, you know what I mean? It was sitting and learning. Some people were observing him. Right? I was there in Tafshin and Dalet. Yeah. Anyways, my point is that even today we have this concept with enough kavana, you can get to a place in davening with enough focus that you are. Again, I don't mean that if like I said, if the ear raid siren went off, that you wouldn't hear it, but to enter a different zone. So this guy over here is coming and disturbing your davening. Why did the Eibishter do this? It's because the Eibishter wants you to upgrade your davening. He wants that you should daven with such intensity to the point that you don't even hear the guy. But now the question becomes, Sheldon, what's bothering you? What's bothering you, Sheldon?
It's not always like that.
It's not always like what?
That the guy is bothering him so that because Hashem wants the person to daven with more kavanah. That's not.
I'm listening.
It's not always the case.
You're saying that sometimes Taka, the guy says, you know what, I want to disturb the Yid because I want him to daven harder. But you're saying sometimes that's not what the guy is thinking.
Yeah. No, not what the guy is thinking, but even what Hashem wants. That's
So what?
not-
So why is Hashem doing it?
I'm thinking about there's a picture of a Frum Yid. He's got tefillin on his arm, and he's being taunted by Nazis.
Oh, that's famous picture.
You know the picture.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
You saw the picture.
That's what I'm thinking about. It's not because Hashem wants him to daven with more kavanah. That's not in a situation like that.
So what is the reason?
I don't know, but to say that that's because Hashem wants him to daven with more kavanah is, I don't think that's what happened.
Okay. When you're saying that's what happened, first of all, we have to understand. Let's talk about the larger idea here. And then let's get back to the particular. What is the larger idea here? The larger idea is that everything in the world is being recreated at every single moment by Hashem. There's a nitzutz of the Shekhinah, of the Dvar Hashem, within every single creation, and therefore, by definition, everything that happens is controlled by Hashem. Which is why, when Shimi was throwing stones at David, David said, "Relax, ki Hashem amar le'kalil from Hashem." This is part of the idea of Einid Movadi of Achdus Hashem. Hashem is within everything, and there's a reason for everything. Now, over here, Alter Rebbe is not talking about a case where Goyim are sitting with guns and trying and killing people. But even in that case, also, the same logic applies. Maybe there the kavanah wasn't the daven stronger. Maybe it was a different kavanah. But ultimately, as a yid, what we understand is that Meloichol Aretz Kavodei means that the Eibishter is in every event and everything, and that means there's a kavanah in everything. So yes, there was a kavanah in that also. Do I know the kavanah? No. Do you know the kavanah? No. But the moment that we start saying there wasn't a kavanah, the Eibishter lost control, that is Avodah Zarah.
Not saying that Hashem lost control, but Hashem gave over to the person the rishus to do what he was doing.
The Eibishter doesn't give over anything. In other words, he had Bechira Chavshis, but this is the same thing over here. What happens to the Yid? One person doesn't have the Bechira to hurt another person.
We already learned that if somebody is doing an favor, he's doing something against Hashem's will.
The
but
choice.
He's doing it anyway, so
It's
that
the
means
choice.
Hashem is allowing him to do it.
But not to another person.
Sure he is.
That's the whole point that we spoke about.
He's
No.
doing to another person.
Al hanizik v'nigzem and hashamayim. We spoke about that at the beginning of the Perek. That the one who was hurt, the only reason why he's able to be hurt, is because Hashem decided it.
It was nigzar.
So the Eibishter never loses control.
That's not what I'm
I
saying.
remember what I said. Person A can decide to shoot person B, and person A can pick up the gun and pull the trigger. Will person B be shot? That depends. Was it nigzar min hashamayim that person B should be shot or not? Otherwise, the trigger will lock. Everything's that's really the point here, is that everything is from the Eibishter. Everything. And the Baal Shem Tov is talking about a specific case. We're not talking about a goy is coming to kill a Yid. That's what you're talking about. Specific case where a Yid is davening. He's not in danger, but he's davening, and a goy is disturbing. What should the Yid realize? There's a reason for this, and what is the reason? In this specific case, that's the reason. The reason is that Hashem wants him to have more kavanah. How do you get to a space of more kavanah? Presumably, this Yid is already doing all that he can to have kavanah. How does he pick up his kavanah? So that's what the Baal Shem Tov explains. He says, and I would like to read for you actually what the Baal Shem Tov says. Remember last time, I forgot to bring the Tzavos Harivash, so my wife sent it to me. Remember? Mm-hmm. So I want to see if I can find that picture again and read for you what the Baal Shem Tov actually says. Here we go. Okay. V'chein. Santa says, "Mishmei echad medaber." If you hear someone talking, who mispal, and you're davening, Yemar, you should say, "Lama hiviyei Hashem haloim l'daber b'tech tfilasi." Why did Hashem bring this guy here?
Yeah,
To bother me while I'm davening. Again, everything's from the Eibishter. Haloi kolza bashgacha pratis. Everything is bashgacha pratis. The goy being here is bashgacha pratis. However, hadiburu hashchina. We have to realize that dibur is the shchina. Visharsa hashchina befi v'shalzeha adam. The shchina is revealing itself in the mouth of this person. Kedei she'achazak es atzmi la'avoda, so that I should strengthen myself in my avoda, in my service. Kama yesh li lachazak es atzmi la'avoda. He tefillah, how much now I have to think, how much I have to strengthen my avoda, my davening, ubefrat, especially in isha medaber. If the person who is speaking, who nachri, is a goy, a cotton, or a child, nimtza kaviyachal hashchina ba'adam kazet. Turns out the shchina is in such a person. Kama roy de latzes bezizus. It's incredible how much I have to daven with his Jesus. So what's he saying here? What's going on? Saying, remember we brought on this whole idea of the pasuk asher shalat ha'adam ba'adam l'ralei, which means that the klipa controls kaviyachol, the kedusha and the shchina l'ralei, but it's to the detriment of the klipa, and it ends up being bad for the klipa. Well, in this case, the klipa kaviyachol is controlling the shechina. What does that mean? Not that the shechina isn't in control, but the shechina is expressing itself in a disgusting, repulsive way. The shechina is expressing itself in an act which is intended to disturb davening. Can you imagine that? But it's the shechina. It's a nitzvah from the shechina. Why? So the klipa is all excited. Take a look. Take a look. I have the energy of the shechina in me. I'm disturbing the yid. But what is the real purpose here? The real purpose is that the person should then go and daven with a greater kavana, so they shouldn't even hear what the guy is saying. So think about it for a second. Hashem lowered himself, his shechina, into this repulsive, disgusting guy, a toilet bowl. Why? Because Hashem loves me and my davening so much that Hashem was willing to go into Golos, into that klipa, to get me to daven even better. That's the kavana that you have. And when you think about that, you're like, wow, that's how much the Eibishter loves me. That's how much the Eibishter treasures and values my davening. And that itself gets you to a place of greater kavana.
That's only if it works.
It's up to you.
The message was there.
It's up to you. Up to you. But this is the Lerale. Why is it Lerale? Because this is the trick that's being played on Klippa. Klippa is all excited. It's disturbing you from davening. But really, what's its purpose? What's the purpose of Klippa? Is to get you to daven harder. So who's the joke on? The joke's on the Klippa. Ultimately, every time that the Shechina goes into Golos and the Klippa, the purpose and the goal is to get a greater Heisafa in Avedas Hashem, a greater Heisafa in Kedusha, a greater addition in Kedusha.
So you have to say thank you to the Klippa.
To thank you to Hashem for willing to lower himself into the Klippa in order, out of his love for you, in order to, yeah. Let's do this inside. The Eitzah, let's start from page Kuf Mem Aleph, opposite of page 280. We'll start again from Ach. We did this inside last time. We'll do again with some more.
So according to that, you have to be Maker Tov to the guy for doing that,
I
right?
just
No. The guy is going to be punished for what he's done. There's the guy and his decisions, and then there's me realizing that whatever happens to me is from the Eibishter. And we separate those two things. However, when do we say that it's permitted, even a mitzvah, to get angry? When you see someone doing an Avera, that's when there's the possibility that through your anger, right, you'll get the other person to not do that Avera anymore. Aval, however, what if it's not within your ability, however, to object or to have any influence? For example, a goy who was speaking and disturbing your davening. In Cain, if so, why did Hashem do this? The only reason for this is only they should strengthen yourself and have even more courage in your davening, from the depth of your heart. With such great kavanah, actually, Yishma de Buri Anachi, to the point you don't even hear the words of the goy. Temchet Mimim, there was in the Shiva Temchet Mimim in Lubavitch. So there was one of the Bachram there, was a very Derheben Ayid. His name was Reb David Kivman, also known as Reb David Haraducker. He came from the city of Haraduk. And the story is told that. Sorry? Okay. Is that once the Rebbe Rashab came into the Beis Medrash. The Rebbe walks in, obviously everyone...
in Europe.
Interach.
In Lubavitch, this is in Lubavitch.
Over here in Brooklyn.
No, this
No, in the city.
in
This is
Lubavitch.
Aratok, right?
No, in Lubavitch.
In Europe.
Lubavitch is in Europe.
The town.
Yeah, I don't know. He said he was learning in Torah.
Temchet Mimim was the name of the yeshiva in Lubavitch. The name of the yeshiva that the Rebbe Rashab established, which exists till today.
I see.
Yes. So the Rebbe Rashab, we're talking here probably in the...
Back here. I thought you were talking about contemporary.
early 1900s. They established the yeshiva in the late 1890s, and the Rebbe Rashab left Lubavitch in 1915. So, in that window of time. So everyone, you can imagine the Rebbe walks into the Beis Medrash, everyone stands up, and it's HaKodesh, and he's davening, and he has no idea what's going on. No idea that the Rebbe walked into the room. And the Rebbe got a lot of nachas from the one bacher who didn't give him any cover. The one bacher was davening and was clueless to the fact that he walked in. However, to reach this level of kavana, you need to have a big yesederus, a big awakening.
Not everybody can do it.
No, that's not what it says. It says you need a big yesederus. It doesn't say not everyone can do
It's
it.
mean.
That means that that means you need to work on yourself. It doesn't say not everyone can do it. You added words. Leisosif, right? The eitz
The
hayutzos.
point that everybody can do it.
Yeah. The eitz hayutzos. The advice that's given. What is the advice the Baal Shem Tov gives? For this, he me'inyan za'atzmai. By thinking into actually what's occurring right now. When a person takes the heart of Yisbein and contemplates. The fact that the Shechina, the descent of the Shechina, the Yerida of the Shechina, Vateiret Ploim. We understand what the Golus HaShechina means. Vateiret Ploim. The Shechina is in Klippa, in this Goy. We slavish nitzutz to the Sabtah, such a insane Yerida. You know, imagine the biggest Yerida you can imagine in this world, right? Bill Gates, who loses his entire fortune and has to live in a cell filled with filth. Okay, he's used to the private jets and the helicopters and the whatever that is. That's nothing compared to what the idea of the Shechina coming down into this disgustingness, into this klipa, into this goy. Lislabish nitzutz ma'rasa.
What's that word means?
That a nitzutz, a spark of the ha'ara, of a ray of the Shechina, asher bebechinas galus and galus b'teich ha-klipa in the klipa is derech klal. We're talking general. The Shechina comes into the klipa lachyesom to give it life. V'ata pa'manau specifically nitzutz arasa. A nitzutz, a spark of the ara mislabish bebechinas galus is right now in galus derech prat very specifically b'dibur nachri zeh. In the words of this goy hamidaber Devarim was speaking words hamavalvam avedas Hashem. Imagine that the Shechina is disturbing avedas Hashem. He kavanas hatfila, which is the kavanah of the davening. And now the Alter Rebbe is going to add in. We know that the Baal Shem Tov, what did he say? He said that the Shechina entered the mouth of the goy. If you remember earlier, on the top of page 280, we said over there that in general, there's a correspondence that even though that all of us come from the Shechina, but when we speak, there's a special connection between speech and the Shechina because Shechina is connected to Dibur. So when the Goy is speaking, there's also a special connection to the Shechina because it's the speech of the Goy. The hand of the Goy is the chesed of the Klipa, which the Shechina is in. Right, but the dibur is the Shechina. This is the Shechina in the dibur of the goy. Kizel explained earlier. Kizelu mazev that this opposite of that kedusha is the opposite of klipa. The dibur elyon mislabish b'dibur atachton. So the dibur of Hashem, which is the Shechina, is right now entering the dibur of this goy. This is literally what we spoke about. That the Arizal says that the Adam of Klipa dominates and rules over the Adam of Kedusha, but Leralei, it's bad for the Klipa. Why is it bad for the Klipa? This way a person is aroused and inspired to daven with greater kavana from the depth of his heart, until he doesn't hear the words of the God. Now, if you recall this piece which we just read you, from the Baal Shem Tov, the Misnagdim, they went ballistic because of this, and they burnt the whole Sefer Tzavot Sarivash because of it. What do you mean? What do you mean? A goy, Shechina, is right now speaking through the goy. What does that mean? So Alter Rebbe says, if you look in the Sefer, he says over there, Sharsa. He says that the Shechina Sharsa is Shoira in the Dibur of the goy. Now the word Shoira is a problem. Why? Because what does the word Shoira mean? Shoira means to dwell.
Well,
whenever we talk about Hashras Hashchina, right? As Asara Sheyeshvin Shchina Shruya B'nei. What does that mean? Shruya, the Shechina, the Hashem is everywhere. So when we talk about that, there's specifically a Shra Shechina somewhere. It means that the Eibishter Hashem is begilui somewhere. You tell me that Hashem is begilui revealed in the words of this goy. You tell me a goy who's speaking and disturbing your davening, Hashem is revealed there. That's the opposite. Hashem is more concealed there than any other place. The Rebbe says, the fact that the compiler of the Sefer, he wrote the word Sharsa, lo yoda lekaven halashon bediktuk. He didn't know, he wasn't translating precisely. Because the Baal Shem Tov, he would say Torah in Yiddish.
But not Lashon Kodesh.
Not Lashon HaKodesh. This is the way of all the Chabad Rebbes, the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, and also, to my knowledge, all the Rebbes in the whole Siddish world. Maybe today it's different. Maybe today some Rebbes will talk now in English. Maybe some Rebbes will talk now in Israel in Ivrit. Ich weiß nicht, back upon him. Traditionally, the way it always was is the Rebbes spoke in Yiddish, but when it was written down, it was always written in Lashon Kodesh. So therefore, if you're writing down what the Rebbe says, and you're translating it, and if you're not very sensitive to the nuance, you can say a word which is a wrong word. It's not the Rebbe says. The word Sharsa is pasha a mistake. The Baal Shem Tov didn't say that word because Baal Shem Tov wasn't speaking in Lashon Kodesh. Baal Shem Tov was speaking in Yiddish. The guy translated. He mistranslated that word. But it's what the Baal Shem Tov, what is intended was nislabsha, not Sharsa. Nislabsha. What does nislabsha mean? Nislabsha means it's enclosed in. What is clothing? Concealment. It's the opposite of Sharsa. Sharsa means revelation. Nislabsha means concealment. V'hainu, what does that mean? Bebechinas galus. That the Shechina is in galus right now in the dibur of this guy. V'zeu, and that's why the Baal Shem Tov continues, ubefratim hunachri, especially if it's a goy. In other words, if Sharsa means revelation, then what do you mean? The Shechina is revealed there, especially if it's a goy. What do you mean? If it's a goy, then it's more revealed. That makes no sense. But if the word is nislapsha, which means concealment, because a garment conceals, then we understand, yeah, the Shechina is concealed there, and especially if it's a goy, it's even more concealed. Sha'azi bechinas galus b'yeser, because then the galus is even greater. So as we see, this entire letter was all leading to this place of understanding what the Baal Shem Tov was saying, because again, this whole letter was written to justify this passage, that basically once we understand the concept of the Shechina, and the Galus HaShechina, we realize that every single thing, the Shechina is in every single place, in every single event, in every single thing, and even when a Goy is sitting and speaking, yes, it's Befeiros the Shechina, and what is the purpose of it? To get the Yid to be able to daven with more kavanah. The Ein L'Tmoya says that, and the Alter Rebbe continuing says, you might be wondering, don't wonder. Im Nitzus when the Aretz Shechina Nikra B'Shem Shechina. What the Baal Shem Tov says, the Shechina is in this Goy's mouth. We're not talking about the Shechina, we're talking about a spark from the Shechina. How can the Baal Shem Tov say the Shechina is in the mouth of this Goy? The Ashkechan, the Alter Rebbe says there's nothing to wonder about. The Ashkechan we find, Shafilu Malach Nivra, even a Malach, which is a creation, Nikra B'Shem Hashem, is called by the name of Hashem, the Parshas Vayera, Lepirush Ramban, the way the Ramban understands it. The Gomeshikasu, as the pasuk says, Vatikra Shem Hashem Hadever Elah V'chulu. Over there, you have the whole story with the conversation that's going on between Hagar and the pasuk says a Malach Hashem. Malach speaks to Hagar. That afterwards, the pasuk says Vatikra, that Hagar calls Hashem who spoke to her, but it wasn't Hashem speaking to her; it was a Malach. But what's pshat? Pshat is that when a Malach is speaking in the name of Hashem, we call it Hashem also, as the Ramban says. Why? Because at that moment of the shlichus, the Malach is completely bottled to Hashem.
This is actually Hashem is talking.
Sorry?
It's actually Hashem. That's by a Navi also.
So if a Malach, but if a Malach, exactly, that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was able to say, I'm going to put, because he's speaking in the name of Hashem. So if a Malach was a creation, can be called by Hashem's name. Kolshkin v'kal v'chomer, a nitzutz of the Shechina, which this is not a creation. A nitzutz of the Shechina for sure can be called by the name of the Shechina itself. Now you walk into a store, you walk in the grocery store and you stop the clerk and you say, stop one of the people over there. You say, you have seltzer. Look, no, I'm out of seltzer. What happened to you?
Yeah, a lot of times.
What do you mean, I'm out of seltzer? you're stocked the shelves. Nothing here belongs to you. But the way they say it, and by the way, if I'm a boss, I want to employees. We're I'm out of it. I'm going to order it. I. But really, he's not speaking for himself. Who's he speaking for?
Boss.
Because at this moment, he is the store. So he could say, I'm out of it. Because he's right. That's the malach. And when he's speaking on behalf of the Eibishter, he's called the Eibishter. The Ramban says. The same thing over here. It's a nitzutz of the Shechina Taka, which is in the Dibur of the Goy. But the nitzutz itself, we can call it the Shechina. Just like again, if we can call a malach the Shechina, and a malach is a creation. Literally a creation. A nitzutz of the Shechina, which is a spark of the Shechina, for sure could be called the Shechina. But there are many places where a malach is called by Hashem's name. And now the Alter Rebbe goes for the jugular, and the Alter Rebbe says we have to stop playing games over here. The Alter Rebbe says, I want to tell you what the real issue is. You want to know what's really bothering you guys? It seems to me it's not an issue of Sharsa or Nislapsha. In other words, had the book said Nislapsha, would you guys have been happy? You also wouldn't have been happy. It's not about the wording over here. The issue here, the core issue is, you don't believe that the Shechina is in the Klippa. You don't believe in Mashakasav Arizal, in that which the Arizal writes, B'Sefer HaGilgulim. That that's where he writes Shal Ta'adam Ba'adam the Ralai, that the Shechina is in Golos in the Klippas. That's the bottom line. That's what's really bothering you. In other words, let's call a spade a spade. It's not the Sharso or the Nislapsha. And this is really getting to the core of it. One of the big debates between Chassidim and Misnagdim at the time, we talked about this when we learned Sharichad Vamuna, specifically in Perek Zayin. One of the big debates of the time was something called Tzimtzum Kipshutei or Tzimtzum Shalei Kipshutei. And without getting into the depth and the whole complexity of it, which we dealt with when we learned Sharichad Vamuna, the question is, when we say there's a Tzimtzum, which means that Hashem contracted himself, does that mean literally Hashem contracted himself and there is space or place where Hashem doesn't exist? And the Misnagdim said yes, and the Alter Rebbe said, based on what the Arizal says, absolutely not. Muloi Chalar, Kavedi means Hashem is everywhere, and he's in the Klippas also. And that's really what's going on over here. That's really the issue over here. It's not about the word Nislapsha. Alter Rebbe says, yeah, Taka, the guy made a mistake. And he should have written Nislapsha instead of writing Sharsa. That's true. But that's not the real issue here. The issue is, do you believe that the Eibishter is in the Klippas? And the Alter Rebbe, that's what it says. Sefer HaGilgulim, it says it very clearly that Shechina is in Galus in the Klippas. So how did the Misnagdim respond to this? It's in the Kisvei Arizal. So I read an article on this a little while back from an academic person, and a person explains that although both the Chassidim and the Misnagdim, they all accepted the Arizal as the greatest Mekubal, in recent times definitely, but the Gra, he accepted the Zohar 100% as infallible. The Kisei Arizal, the Gra did not accept fully. The Arizal himself did not write anything.
Chaim Vital.
Chaim Vital.
Chaim Vital.
So the Gra, although he accepted generally what the Arizal wrote, what the Arizal said, but if he saw something in the Kisvei Arizal they didn't agree with, so he disagreed with it. It wasn't like the Zohar where every single word he felt was on that level. And the Alter Rebbe and Chassidus, there was no such thing. Chaim Vital was authorized by the Arizal to write whatever he wrote is Kodesh Vital. And that's really what it comes down to. The Alter Rebbe is saying is, let's talk the truth. It's not about the word Nislapsha or Sharsa. The question is Hashem present in the Klippas or not? And then the Alter Rebbe continues and says, She'im yirtzu l'chaleik min Klippas aruchim la'evdi gelulim hagashmiyim. So now you're going to, so Alter Rebbe is saying to the Snagdim, okay, so now you're going to tell me, 1 second. The Arizal, he said, when he says that the Shechina is in Galus and the Klippas, that was the spiritual Klippas. But there's the difference. A goy, a physical goy. To say Hashem is in the physical klippa, that not. So the Rebbe says, if you're going to want to make that differentiation, ein locha gashmi kafar haaretz. There's nothing more physical
And the dirt.
than earth. Va'af al pikein, and nevertheless, the Arizal is very clear that mishlabeshes bein malchus de malchus dasiya, that in the earth there is the malchus of asiyo, betoicha malchus the yitzira, within it is malchus the yitzira, chulu etc. Within it is malchus the bria, within it is malchus datzilus. Kinis kalilus mentioned earlier. The earth is klipa, right? Everything in this world is klipa. Either klipas nega or yom klipas atmeis. The earth is klipa, and the Arizal says very clearly that Shechina is there also. So you can't tell me that the Shechina is only in the spiritual klippas, but not in the physical klippas, because the Arizal is very clear that the Shechina is also to be found in the physical klippas. You're going to say, okay, but the earth is klipas noiga. Goyim, they're gimel klipas atmeis. They're worse than earth. Maybe the Shechina is not there. If you're going to tell me, but the Goyim, their neshama is more tame. They're gimel klipas atmeis. Hare, but the Nafshi say, and we know that the souls of the Goyim is mezivu gezunde klipa is haruchnim, comes from the unity of the elements of male and female of the klippis haruchnim, of the spiritual ruchnim, of the spiritual klippis. As Arizal said, nimtza, so it turns out sharuchnim makar tumasam, that the makar, the source of the tumah, is the ruchnius.
It seems to be a contradiction.
The what?
You see, it comes from Ruchni. What is it from?
It comes from in other words, it comes from the spiritual klippis, and the Shechina is there.
Yeah, but that's Tahar. How could it come Tameh?
That's Golos HaShechina. That's Golos HaShechina. That's exactly what we're saying. That's the whole contemplation you have to have, how the Shechina comes down all the way and enters into Tumah and gives energy to something which is Tumah. Tumah doesn't have its own energy. However, the truth is that you're right, this is a complicated topic, and we need this requires an incredible amount of explanation and elaboration. What do you mean that the Eibishter is in Golus and the Klippa? However, the Alter Rebbe says your complaint is not on the Chassidim. This is stuff which is very clear in the writings of the Arizal, and that's go complain to the Arizal. It's not on us. The Arizal says this. This idea of Shal Ta'adam Ba'adam, the idea of the Shechina being Golos and the Klippa is in the Arizal. So that which the Baal Shem Tov says, that when a Goy is speaking, it's the Shechina, it's based completely on the writings of the Arizal. Let not the listener suspect me. Shani be'enai she'evanti divrei Arizal, that I consider myself to really understanding the words of the Arizal. Here's Alter Rebbe in his humility. If I say that, it's true. I think you don't understand the Kisvei Arizal, but the Alter Rebbe, he's being humble. He says, don't think that don't think I'm pretending to understand everything that Arizal writes. La'afshitan begashmiyusan, and to be able to divest them from the physical, meaning. In the writings of Kabbalah, there's a lot of physical imagery going on, a lot of physical metaphors, and everything you need to take the mashal and understand the nimshal. The trick in learning Kabbalah is to understand that whatever you're reading about and all these metaphors is not really it. You have to understand what it really means. So I'm not saying that I've succeeded in doing that, but all I'm doing is coming to explain the words of the Baal Shem Tov, the Talmidav and the Talmidim, Al Pi Kabbalah Sarizal, based on the Kabbalah of the Rizal. Okay, we're going to stop over here. I just want to point out that this idea is something which is also to be found in this week's parsha. Surprise, surprise. So what do we have? End of last week's parsha. So Moshe comes screaming to the Eibishter, Lama Hariyesa. It's a terrible golus. And the Eibishter sends Moshe to take the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. And what happens? It turns out that not only doesn't it get any better,
It's worse.
it gets worse. So what does Hashem respond to Moshe? He says, okay, Ata Sira, just
Now you're going to see.
now you're going to see what's going to I'm taking on the Mitzrayim. And then this week's parsha begins by Eira, Al Avram, Al Yitzchak, Al Yaakov, I revealed myself. Ushmi Hashem, I didn't reveal to them my name of Hashem. So yeah, Rashi struggles on what's going on, gives different pirushim. How did the Avos go? Why is the Eibishter suddenly disparaging the Avos? Say something positive about now. Why do you have to go and say something negative? Shmi Hashem, leine daiti lam. So the Alter Rebbe talks about this in a Maimer on this week's parsha, and he explains that Hashem was. This was really what Hashem with the first words, of the first psukim of our parsha. Hashem is really answering Moshe. Moshe asked, "Lama hariyesa?" Hashem is answering. What's the answer? Moshe says, "Why have you done this terrible thing to Klal Yisrael?" Hashem is answering. He says, "I want you to know that I need the Yidden have to go to receive the Torah, and receiving the Torah is the Gilui of Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya is the Shem Ha'esem, Shem HaMeferish. And no matter how great the Avos were, and the Avos were, as we know them, are covered, they're phenomenally great, they never had that Madrega. They never had the Gili of Shem Havaya. And I want to give the Yidden now. Hashem is saying the Yidden the Gili of Shem Havaya. And for that to happen, they have to go through Galus Mitzrayim. You want to know Lama Hariyesa? You want to know why? What's the purpose? The reason for it is because all that suffering makes them, refines them, and makes them spiritually sensitive, as the Pasuk calls Mitzrayim, the Kur HaBarzal. You know, you put the furnace where you put the
smelter.
Right, the smelter. You put an iron in, and it was in order to be able to be zoicha to the Gili of Shem Havaya. Shem Havaya means beyond limitations, and every Yid now is beyond limitations. And for that we have to go through Galus Mitzrayim. So Moshe asks, Lama Ariyesa? And Hashem tells him the reason why is because I needed to move the Yidden past the level of the Avos. The Avos were in the Madrega of Shindal Yud. The Yidden now with Man Torah are going to be on the Gili Shem Havaya, and for that, we needed to have Mitzrayim. How does that connect to what we're learning over here? So Yidden are Mitzrayim. Is there a greater clip than the clip of Mitzrayim and Pare? Terrible, awful people who shechted tens of thousands of Jewish children, and threw the Jewish children into the Nilus, right? And ultimately, it's Shalot HaAdam Ba'Adam. That the clip over here is controlling the Shekhinah, because obviously it was the Shekhinah that's giving the life to Mitzrayim.
Allowing them to do that.
Not only allowing, it's all from the Shekhinah. All is the Shekhinah.
The Shekhinah is doing it.
Anything that happens to Yid is from the Shekhinah. A Goy doesn't have control over Yid. It's the Shekhinah within it. But the Shekhinah is in Golus, and it's disgusting. And what's the reason for it? Lerale. It's not for the good of Klippa. Ultimately, it's so that Yidden can burst out and reach even a higher level of Kedusha, the level of Shem Havaya. And this Perek, you might want to think that it's a lofty Perek and talking about Shekhinah and Golus and Klippas, but actually it's very, very relevant to our lives. And next week we will finish this Perek and talk also the practical relevance, what this means in our life.